3:20 in the morning and I'm awake, not because I have to be, not because anything happened. I'm awake because my body decided somewhere around 1979 that 3:20 a.m. was when it would start charging me, and it has never missed a single payment since. I lay there in the dark. Karen's asleep on her side, not touching me, which is fine, which is how it goes now. And I stare at the ceiling and I think about phenobarbital. Not because I miss it. I haven't taken it in 8 years. I think about it because my body still thinks it's supposed to be there. Every morning at 3:20, some switch flips somewhere in whatever's left of my sleep architecture. And I open my eyes and the ceiling is just there, gray, flat, same as the light outside the window in February. I used to tell myself it was the bar work. 25 years of closing the Anchor Inn, Wednesday through Sunday, 2 a.m. finishes. You get used to nights. I told myself that for a long time. It wasn't the bar work. My name is Bobby Schreiber. I'm 68 years old. I live in a ranch house on the west side of Janesville, Wisconsin, that Karen and I bought in 1984 for $81,000. I have a son named Scott who's 38 and calls me every Sunday at around 11 in the morning. We talk for about 11 minutes. Weather, the Packers if it's fall, the Brewers if it's spring. He asks how I'm feeling. I say fine. He says good. We hang up. For 25 years I was the head bartender and shift manager at the Anchor Inn. Started in 1977 when I was 19. The place had been open since 1952. It smelled like spilled Schlitz and cigarette smoke and the industrial mat cleaner we used on Thursdays. And I loved it the way you love a place that was yours before you had anything else to call yours. I called Last Call 5 nights a week for 25 years. Last Call. You say it loud, you say it with authority, and you mean it. Every person in that room understood what those 2 words meant. It meant the establishment had made a judgment. It meant, we see you, we know what you've had, and we're telling you it's time. Enough. Done. The bar knows when someone has had too much, and the bar is saying so out loud, in front of everyone, with no apology. I called Last Call for hundreds of people. Thousands maybe, over the years. I knew who needed water. I knew who needed a cab. I knew who'd had 3 and was fine. And I knew who'd had 3 and wasn't. I knew all of it. I was good at it. For 25 years, the only person at the Anchor Inn for whom I never announced Last Call was myself. In 1979, I was 21 years old and I hadn't slept more than 4 hours in a row in 8 months. The bar schedule was Wednesday through Sunday nights. I closed at 2 a.m., drove home by 2:45, was too wired to sleep until after sunrise, slept until noon or 1, woke up feeling like concrete, started the whole thing over. Karen was pregnant with Scott. I was exhausted in a way that didn't have a bottom to it. I went to see Dr. Arthur Kepler. He'd been our family doctor since 1962. He was 67 years old in 1979. He had a handshake like a vice and a framed photo of Eisenhower on his office wall, and he never once made you feel like your problem was small. I told him I couldn't sleep. I told him about the hours, the schedule, the sun coming up while I was trying to wind down. He wrote a prescription for phenobarbital, 30 milligrams at bedtime. He said, "It'll calm your nerves and let you sleep, Bobby. I've been prescribing this since 1955. It's very reliable." That was the whole conversation. I don't mean I'm leaving out the part where he explained the risks. I mean the conversation was exactly that long. He'd been prescribing it since 1955. It was reliable. Here's your slip. See the girl up front. I filled it that afternoon. Luminol. That's what it was called. Phenobarbital. Brand name Luminol. I didn't know what a barbiturate was. I didn't know what GABA A meant. I was 21 years old with a pregnant wife and a closing shift that ended at 2 in the morning. And Dr. Kepler said it was fine, so it was fine. It worked. I slept 8 hours. I woke up and Karen said I looked like a human being again for the first time since spring. That was 1979. I took the last dose in 2013, 34 years. I want to be careful here about what I'm saying, because I've spent 8 years trying to say it correctly and I still haven't gotten it right. I was not drunk for 34 years. I did not stumble around. I did not lose my job. I retired from the Anchor Inn in 2002, officially because of the knee and the lower back, which were real, which did hurt, but that's not the whole picture. We'll get to that. I did not get arrested. I did not wreck a car. What happened to me was quieter than any of that, and in some ways harder to name, and in some ways harder to explain to people who want a dramatic story. Karen doesn't get many dramatic stories from me. She never did. The drug made sure of that. By 1984, 30 milligrams wasn't doing the same thing it had in 1979. The body accommodates. That's what it does. The receptor sites adjust. Dr. Kepler noted the tolerance. I told him the pill wasn't working as well, and he moved me to 60 milligrams at bedtime. Still just the one dose, still fine, reliable. He'd been prescribing it since 1955. By 1991, I was having what I can only describe as a low-grade hum of anxiety during the day. Nothing dramatic, just a persistent unease, like a refrigerator that runs slightly too loud and you only notice it when it stops, except it never stopped. I went back to Kepler and he added a morning dose, 60 milligrams twice a day, 120 milligrams daily. He wrote it on the chart. He didn't use the word dependence. He didn't ask me how long I'd been on it. I was 43 years old. I looked like a working man who was tired. Nobody looks at a 43-year-old man taking a sleeping pill and thinks anything is wrong. I stayed at 120 milligrams from 1997 until 2013. 16 years at the same dose. I carried the bottle the same way I carried my wallet. It was just part of what I did. Take the morning pill with breakfast. Take the evening pill after the news. Don't miss a dose, because actually I didn't know why I shouldn't miss a dose. I just knew that missing it made me feel like sandpaper. Irritable in a way I couldn't explain. Skin crawly. Wrong. So I didn't miss doses. What I didn't know, what nobody told me, not Kepler, and after Kepler retired in 2003, not Dr. Monica Ostrowski, who just kept renewing the prescription at our annual physicals, the same way she renewed the blood pressure medication. What I didn't know was what the drug was doing to the inside of the house while I was busy not noticing. The first thing it took was sleep quality. I know that sounds wrong. It was a sleeping pill. It gave me sleep. But phenobarbital suppresses REM sleep, the part where your brain actually recovers, processes, consolidates. I was getting 8 hours. I woke up exhausted every single morning for 34 years. I thought I was just the kind of person who didn't rest well. I thought that was my nature. It wasn't my nature. It was luminol, quietly removing the part of sleep that was worth having and leaving me the hours without the restoration. I told myself I was tired from the work. The bar work was real. The knees were real. The late nights were real. The drug was hiding inside all of that, and it fit, and nobody thought to look. The second thing it took was, it's harder to explain this one. Karen called me the stone man, not cruelly. She wasn't cruel about it. She just ran out of other words. By the mid-90s, I had become progressively quieter, less reactive. If Scott came home from school with something exciting, I'd nod. If Karen wanted to talk about her day, I could listen, but I couldn't. Respond wasn't the right word. I could hear it. I just couldn't feel the shape of it back at her. I thought it was maturity. I thought I was developing the kind of quiet that comes when a man gets older and stops needing to perform. I told myself that. It wasn't maturity. It was effective flattening. That's what the neuropsychologist called it in 2019 when we went through the whole battery. Chronic phenobarbital exposure blunts emotional reactivity as a matter of chemistry. The GABA A receptors that were being modulated for sleep were the same circuits involved in emotional processing. I was being chemically quieted, and I thought that was me becoming a better man. Karen has never said I was wrong. She's also never said I was right. We share a house. We're polite. We eat dinner together at 6, and she watches her shows and I watch the game. I'm still quiet. I don't know anymore if that's the drug's permanent effect or just 34 years of practice. I'm not sure it matters. I still haven't learned to not be quiet without it. Scott was 14 in 1995. He played football. Not exceptional, not terrible, just a kid who wanted his father in the bleachers and got him there maybe a third of the time because the schedule was the schedule, and Wednesday through Sunday I worked. The times I was there, I just wasn't. I was the stone man in the bleachers, nodding, present in the way a lamp is present, providing light without warmth. He became an engineer. He lives in Appleton. He calls every Sunday, 11 minutes. The third thing, this one I noticed less, or maybe I noticed it differently, or maybe I just attributed it to getting older, which is what you do. By the early 2000s, I was making mistakes behind the bar that I hadn't made since I was learning. Mixing up orders, forgetting a regular's usual, standing at the register and losing the number I was trying to enter. Small things. I was in my mid-40s. The bar was smoky and loud, and I'd been doing it for 25 years. Of course you lose a little sharpness. You're not 21 anymore. I retired in 2002. Official reason. Knee replacement was coming up. Lower back was a problem. 25 years is enough of anything. All true. Every word of it true. Also true. I had started to be afraid behind the bar. Afraid I'd get an order wrong. Afraid I'd lose the count. Afraid the regular from the corner stool would see me hesitate. I had never been afraid behind the bar. For 22 of those 25 years, I was the most confident man in that room. The bar was mine. The last 3 years, it was starting to feel like somebody else's house that I was visiting. There's a photograph on the wall in this living room. I'm looking at it right now. From the 25th anniversary of the Anchor Inn, 2002. I'm behind a bar with a towel over my shoulder, 44 years old, smiling at the camera. I look like a man who owns the place. I was on 120 milligrams of phenobarbital a day when that photo was taken. I didn't know it was taking my mind along with my sleep and my feelings. I just looked like a hard-working man who was ready to retire. In the second drawer of the dresser in our bedroom, there is a bar apron. Canvas. Raw. The Anchor Inn embroidered in red across the front. The red is faded to a kind of dried blood pink. I don't look at it when I open that drawer. I don't throw it away. I don't know what I'm waiting for with that apron. I've thought about it, and I don't have an answer, so I leave it there, and I don't look at it. August 14th, 2013. I was 55 years old. I had a 2-day fishing trip planned at Mirror Lake State Park up in Wisconsin Dells, alone. Eddie Zawatsky was supposed to come. Eddie was my bar colleague for 16 of those 25 years. Best friend in the way that men who work the same shift for 16 years become best friends without ever quite saying so. But Eddie had a family thing and couldn't make it. I went alone. Mirror Lake in August, warm, still, the kind of water that doesn't move. I packed the truck Thursday evening, clothes, cooler, rods, tackle. I did not pack the phenobarbital. I discovered this Friday morning, unpacking at the campsite. The pill bottle was on the bathroom counter in Janesville. I had left home for the first time since 1979 without phenobarbital. Friday, I told myself it was fine, one day. I'd been taking it for 34 years, and I was just going to fish and sleep in the truck and drive home Saturday. It would be fine. I fished until dark. I ate something from the cooler. I slept badly, worse than usual, which is saying something, but I slept. Saturday morning, I broke down the camp and started driving home. I stopped at a Perkins in Baraboo, Wisconsin. It was around noon. I pulled into the parking lot. I turned off the engine. That is the last thing I remember. I woke up in the ICU at Sauk Prairie Healthcare in Prairie du Sac, Wisconsin. There were tubes. Karen was there. Her face was doing something I had not seen it do in years. A nurse was adjusting something above my head. The emergency physician was a Dr. James Holbrook. I don't know how old he was. He came in after Karen stepped out, sat down next to the bed, and he said, "Mr. Schreiber, your phenobarbital level was undetectable. You were in full barbiturate withdrawal. You had a tonic-clonic seizure in the parking lot. A woman eating lunch at a window table saw you fall and called 911. If you had seized while driving, we'd be calling your wife for a different reason." I had a grand mal seizure in the parking lot of a Perkins restaurant. Someone eating a club sandwich saw me fall through the window. First time I knew. 34 years in, one missed day, 55 years old. First time I knew that what Dr. Kepler had called a reliable sleeping pill was something that my body now required in order to not have its electrical system revolt. I had been the man who called last call. I had been the authority. I had looked across bars at people who didn't know they'd had enough, and I had known it for them. My body called last call for me in a parking lot in Baraboo, Wisconsin, in August of 2013, while I was unconscious on the asphalt. The taper took 5 years. Dr. Ostrowski brought in a neurologist, Dr. Carl Bender, out of Madison. We went slow. We had to go slow because barbiturate withdrawal can kill you. Not the kind of slowly uncomfortable that feels dangerous, actually kill you, the way alcohol withdrawal can, seizing and stopping and not starting again. We dropped the dose in 10 milligram steps. We waited weeks between each step. We monitored. There were bad nights. There were bad weeks. There were 2 months in 2015 that I don't remember clearly because the anxiety that the drug had been suppressing for 34 years came back all at once, and it was not the mild hum of 1991. It was everything I had not felt for 34 years arriving simultaneously, like a bill that had been accumulating interest since 1979 and was now presented in full. Karen stayed. I don't know why exactly. She doesn't explain herself, and I don't ask. She was there in 2015 when I sat at this kitchen table at 2 in the morning, not able to explain why my hands wouldn't stop shaking. And she put coffee in front of me and sat down across from me and didn't say anything. That was enough. That was more than I deserved. I took the last dose in 2018, 34 years after the first. This is what's left. I wake up at 3:20 a.m. every morning. The body still bills for the pill hour. My balance is off in a way that isn't obvious on flat ground, but gets obvious on anything that moves. I don't go fishing anymore. I don't trust my feet in a boat. I fell twice in 2019 on uneven ground, and both times I stood up and nobody saw me and I didn't tell Karen. I don't fish anymore. Mirror Lake is 3 hours north of here, and I have not been back since August 2013. My liver. 34 years of phenobarbital means 34 years of the hepatic enzyme system working overtime to process it. The ALT, that's the liver enzyme, the one that tells you how inflamed it is, my ALT runs at about twice what it should, chronically. It's been that way since we started testing it properly. Dr. Bender says it's mild to moderate fibrosis, not cirrhosis, not liver failure, just chronically elevated, chronically inflamed, the organ still trying to recover from 4 decades of metabolizing something it was never designed to metabolize indefinitely. I take atorvastatin for it. I take vitamin D because the liver processes that too. The pill organizer on the coffee table there, that's the daily lineup. 2 prescriptions and a vitamin because I stopped one medication and it left 3 others in its place. My hearing. The right ear is worse. High frequencies. Karen has to face me when she talks. I miss the end of sentences in a noisy room. I don't know if that's the phenobarbital or just being 68, and neither does Dr. Bender, and at this point the honest answer is probably both. The 2019 neuropsychological test. Processing speed, 38th percentile for my age. That means 62% of 68-year-old men process new information faster than I do. I was a bartender. I processed 6 orders and 4 conversations and a football game on the TV simultaneously for 25 years. Now I read a paragraph and sometimes have to read it again. I don't know if that comes back. Nobody has told me it does. Eddie Zawadzki died of a heart attack in 2021. He was 67. He had retired from the bar business in 2004, moved to Fond du Lac, saw his grandkids. He died on a Thursday morning shoveling snow from his driveway, which is the most Wisconsin way to die I can imagine, and I mean that affectionately. Eddie knew everything, about the pills, about Baraboo, about the taper years. He was the one who drove down from Fond du Lac in 2015 and sat with me for a weekend when the withdrawal anxiety was at its worst. He never asked for an explanation and never needed one. He just showed up with a case of Diet Dr. Pepper. I can't be around alcohol. 25 years of watching people drink, and now I can't smell it without my stomach turning. And we watched baseball, and he slept on the couch, and he went home Monday morning. He's been gone 4 years. Now it's just me who knows. Me and Karen knows the facts, but not the interior of it. The daily accounting of it, the way you carry something that doesn't have a name. I'm looking at the photo on the wall. Bobby Schreiber, 2002, 44 years old, towel over the shoulder, smiling at the camera, the reliable man, the man who knew when everyone had had enough, the man who called last call. 120 milligrams in that photo. Dr. Kepler said it was reliable in 1979. He prescribed it until he retired in 2003. He died in 2007. I never talked to him again after he retired. I don't know if he knew what it was doing. I don't know if it would have changed anything if he had. I don't know how to be angry at a dead man who meant well. I've tried. It doesn't work. What I know is this. For 25 years, the job was to know when someone had had enough. I was good at the job. I called last call with authority every single night for 25 years, and I meant it, and people listened, and it was true. I just never turned around and said it to myself. My body eventually said it for me. It said it in a parking lot, in August, in a town I'd never been to before, in front of a woman I'll never meet, who was just trying to eat her lunch. I owe that woman something. I don't know what. I've thought about it. She saw me fall and she called someone. That was a correct and good thing to do. She had no way of knowing she was making the announcement I'd been avoiding since 1979. Last call, Bobby. It only took 34 years to hear it. 8 years clean. The ataxia is permanent. The liver numbers don't change. The 3:20 a.m. wake-up doesn't change. The 11-minute Sunday calls from Scott don't change. The living room in February light doesn't change. Gray, flat, the voile curtains filtering Wisconsin winter into something that looks like overexposure, like a photo taken just slightly wrong. There's a can of Diet Dr. Pepper on the coffee table. There's a stack of Bassmaster magazines I haven't read in 2 months. There's a pill organizer with this week's atorvastatin and vitamin D and meclizine. That last one is for the balance, for the inner ear, for whatever the 34 years left in the vestibular system. I take them in the morning with coffee before Karen leaves for the parish committee or the gym, when the house is quiet and the only sound is the refrigerator and the occasional car on 51. Every week the same as the last. I don't complain. It's more than I deserve. The apron is still in the second drawer. The anchor in, faded red. I'll probably leave it there until someone else has to decide what to do with it. I don't look at it. I never throw it away.